Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show how this spoon right here is going to help me describe how I personally teach Wing Chun or anything else for that matter. So if I were to teach you how to eat and I said you put the spoon in and then turn it around and eat and put the spoon in and turn it around and I taught you this over and over and over and over and over. And so you get to put the spoon in, go like this, and boom. And after a while, after years, sometimes you don't even question it. It's just that's the way you were taught. And then, it is getting from point A to point B. So what's the big deal? So there is no big deal. Okay. The issue is that how you learn something is how you do it. And if that's how you do it, there could be some compromise. So I'm going to take this out here for a second and I'm going to say my style of teaching is food, eat, food, eat. Now I got to point A and B much quicker because it was a straight line. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm omitting technique and that I'm omitting some of the nuances that are needed in reality. So I wanted to use this real quick as an example of my teaching style. So when it comes to the wooden dummy, right? You've probably heard it a million times before. And again, some people have a certain caveat to how they teach. So just like I'm letting you know how I teach. So here's the thing. You see people use the dummy like this. Um, so, you have, you know, this type of style. Then you might have boom, 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 boom. You might have, boom, 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 boom. And you go, so what in the world is the difference? Well, just like the spoon example, they're all getting to their point B, okay? But one is just a little bit more efficient. Now, what's the big deal then? Well, the big deal is that when you put it into practice and you start actually applying it with other people, other human beings, you'll see that those little time deficiencies start to add up. And what could be too circular and too long in a real combat, it's going to be detrimental in that it wasn't very time efficient. Now, my personal experience is this. For example, if I, just with that one, we're doing Kwanzaa. Again, I don't want anybody to take any insult. This is the way I teach, and this is the way my mindset is, and this is the way we apply it. Okay. So here we go. I'm coming in with a Kwanzaa, and I got my bang and I got my tan. Okay. So, which is my Kwanzaa. And when I hit and deflect, they're both going into the center here. Obviously, you can't feel that because this is video. But basically, what I'm not doing is doing this so that the trajectory of that energy goes that way. So that's what I'm not doing. Although you might see angulation and assume that that's where it's going. But in reality, when I'm doing this, my energy is always towards the center. Okay. So with that said, the way I teach it is Quan. And then this little kind of transitionary movement, whoa, and then Quan Tan. So here's I'm sorry, Bang Tan. So that's my Quan Sao. And whoa, and whoa. And you notice that I stick to the arms, okay? As opposed to boom, retract, come out, boom, retract, come out. Now I can see that as a pattern just for learning, like when you're learning your ABCs, that maybe this will help some people just, okay, here's my Quan. Okay, here's my Quan. but then you start to develop bad habits. And of course, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It doesn't even take a good fighter or a fighter at all to just understand the science behind this. Whoa, whoa, and this. Which one would be more time consuming? Okay. Another thing is when you're actually fighting, when you apply the way we apply it. Okay. For example, on number 9, we do this. So I can go in, bam, I can come out and look at the disconnection here. Connection, whoa, connection. But everything is kind of touch and go in real life when you're actually sparring with somebody. So I like to, once I touch and I made my contact and I hit my target, whoa, whoa, one thing triggers the other. Like, whoa, hit, whoa, bam, pow, pow, whoa, Quan, whoa, boom, whoa. And it's like one thing is hitting the next that's allowing, bam, the ricochet for the next, and the next. So as far as speed is concerned, like how fast you do that, how slow you do that, now that's something that you take personally for you, because you can do this super duper slow, just so that you can get that mind and muscle coordination. You can do it super fast, obviously, but I would do it the way you're going to apply it. And the only way you know how you're going to apply it is when you're actually sparring. So this is, again, this here is kind of like the blueprint of how we would take this into an actual fight, or at least with sparring. So back to this. If I did this with the Hun Sao, for example, so I'm here and I did a Hun Sao. So a lot of people would do this and come out and come back. Now, again, I'm being a stickler here, but if you notice the hand, right? If I go like this with my elbow, and this elbow goes too high on the Y axis, well, the moment I do this, bam, and this starts to float up, yes, it could turn into a bang sao, right? I could jam the hand. But what happens is you start developing bad ideas, for what this thing could be implemented into later on. Where if I was here and I did a Hun Sao, well, I want to stay as close to this arm as possible, especially when it comes to Chi Sao. But more than anything, just because you want to develop that sensitivity, whoa, make sure that maybe your Hun Sao, turns into a strike, turns into a Fuk Sao, or turns into a Jut Sao, that you're sticking enough so you can apply these things, because they happen in little microseconds. Okay, so anyway, I can go on and on and on, but I did want to introduce this whole thing by making it analogous with stuff that we know how to do, and no one needs to tell us how to do it, like eating. It is a very linear process, and fighting is, while it might seem like there's a lot of complexities, and especially when you're doing the wooden dummy, it is linear in that you ultimately just want to get to your target. So don't overcomplicate things. But at the same time, there are a lot of little nuances, and there's a lot of angles that you're not seeing right now because you can't see my footwork. But first and foremost, your footwork is going to get you to a position where that angle would be appropriate for you to execute whatever it is you're going to execute. So just like any other art or any other sport or any other thing for that matter, just as simple as walking, your footwork really is what takes you from point A to B. And then all of the other secondary and tertiary effects that happen throughout the chain of command of the body kinetically, those are the things that fall in line. But a lot of people just want to already start here, making this the first thing, and then your legs the second or last thing. And that's just definitely not the way it should be. Anyway, I know I made this video much longer and much more laborious than it needs to be, but it's worth the detail, it's worth the information, and more than anything, I like to show you how I think, how I teach, because once we get out of the realm of the dummy, then we have to actually put this into practice with an actual live human being who might also be a dummy. All right, looking forward to hearing from you guys. Peace.